Hello, everybody.
Hello.
All right. Hey, I have a request before we begin. Can people in the back move forward so we look like we're a part of a community? We like each other, right? I know some of you guys are very shy, but if you guys move down. Huh? Oh yeah, you're always there. You're always there. You were there last time, and yeah. Somebody please sit next to Jesse. He's very lonely. Yeah, you guys can move down that way, but also like right here, a lot of good seats, free of charge, premium seats. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to another awesome Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Lecture Series, which in my opinion is a marquee speaker event at LMU, but just my opinion, my humble opinion. Our event is especially awesome today because we are this year celebrating CBA 100, 100 years of teaching business at LMU. Wow. Yay. By the way, I'm David Choi, Hilton Chair of Entrepreneurship at LMU, and also the Director of the Fred Keeson Center for Entrepreneurship. I want to thank all of you for being here. I want to thank our partners helping organize the event, the Entrepreneurship Center. I saw Alex and workers, Business Law Society, the Crimson Consultant Group, and Delta Sigma Pi. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Renata. All right. I think people had dinner and, kind of sleepy. Today we have not one, but two powerful entrepreneurs, disruptors, and leaders with us, Julie Uhrman and Renata Simril. Thank you. And you'll get to know our speakers well during the interviews, but let me give you a little flavor. So Julie Uhrman is an accomplished entrepreneur and influential leader who has made an indelible mark in sports and entertainment as the president and co-founder of Angel City Football Club. Woo-hoo. Renata is the president and CEO of the LA84 Foundation, the youth-serving organization committed to transforming the lives of youth in Southern Cal through sports and play programs. By the way, I'm fascinated with her career. I saw a bio. You started as police officer? Military police in the U.S. Army, in Germany domestically, deputy mayor, city of LA, senior vice president of LA Dodgers, chief of staff of LA Times, so on, so on. So many, actually. I gotta stop here, but very impressive. And if you're wondering, how can somebody be so awesome? She's a graduate of LMU. So, please sit down. Our speakers today, as you can tell, are legendary. And speaking of legendary, the discussion will be moderated by Dr. Dale Smith, our Dean of the College of Business, who's been leading strategy, operations, and fundraising at CBA since 2018. She's often ranked as one of the most influential people in Los Angeles. How about a big hand for all three of them? All right, Dale, you could take it away from here.
Thanks, David.
I like this little water thing. Good bedside table thing.
Isn't that nice? Yeah, we have a great staff that just makes this so easy.
We didn't have these when I went to school here.
Well, then cheers out. Where's Nancy? Nancy, well done.
We had plastic cups.
You know, it's funny, when I met these two ladies, I met them in two different circumstances. Renata, we got to know through the LMU connections, and I remember being with our Senior Director of Business Development and Strategy. Noel and I were at an event at the LA Economic Development Corp over at the LA84. And Renata spoke, and we just sat there absolutely blown away. I mean, when she started to talk about player equity and what she had done with the foundation, absolutely mind-blowing. There's an entrepreneurial spirit there, which you'll get. Julie, I was told to meet in 2018 when I first moved to Los Angeles by my good friend who's from her alma mater at WashU. And Patrick said, you have to meet Julie Uhrman. And you know, you get busy, COVID comes around, and finally we end up meeting at an LA Business Journal event where she's on the panel that I'm moderating. And she finished speaking, and I said, oh my gosh, here are two incredible powerhouse women. I wonder how they would feel if I invited them together to really share their leadership secrets. And what I discovered is they knew each other long before I knew either one of them, and have been friends and have influenced each other. So one of the leadership lessons I hope you'll take away from our C-Suite series is the power of the network and what people learn from each other. So we asked a bunch of our students for questions and areas that we wanted to chat with you about. But before I do that, my team tells me I have a very exciting announcement to make. And you know, we're speaking about sports and we're speaking about business and the intersectionality of the two. And it turns out that we are launching officially today, it's on the big screens out in the auditorium, the Business and Sports Certificate. So we're super excited. There are flyers, we're on the website, and by the time this evening is finished and you have a chance to hear and learn from Renata and from Julie, you'll appreciate how much value that Business Sports Certificate can add. And that's the commercial. So let's go ahead and get started. We now know that you're good friends, and I wonder if you could start by just telling the story of how that happened and whether it's the same perspective.
I like the way you tell the story.
Okay, so 2 years out from Angel City Football Club becoming a thing, I get a call from a friend of mine, mutual friend we share in common, and said, you know, do you know Julie Uhrman? I was like, nope, never heard of her. She says, well, you know, she's got this sports initiative that she's working on, super top secret, she can't tell you what it is about it, but she wants to meet you to talk about social impact. Anytime somebody says they want to talk to me about social impact, I'm in. So I get connected to Julie. We have a conversation. She's being super secretive about what she's talking about, but she wants to come to campus and just have an understanding of what we do and how we work, et cetera, et cetera. And she says, can I bring a friend? And I said, yeah, sure. So we set up a day for a meeting. And somehow I'm in the room first, and my assistant brings Julie up. And as I'm looking at Julie, I'm looking right past Julie, and I see this woman. And I said, that's not... Okay, Renata, don't say Princess Amidala. Don't say Princess Amidala. I'm a huge Star Wars fan. She brings Natalie Portman to the meeting with her. Now, I got really comfortable because Natalie Portman was wearing a t-shirt, jeans, and the dopest pair of Jordans I'd ever seen. So I'm like, she's just an average, normal person, which I found out, you know, talking about impact and purpose and really the indelible mark that the team wanted to leave in community. It was a really easy conversation.
What's your recollection, Julie?
That was exactly it. I was.
She didn't know I was sweating, though. Did you know I was sweating?
No, I didn't know you were sweating. Exactly. But you know, and Natalie and I had only met maybe a couple weeks before that, trying to figure out like what Angel City was going to be and how we wanted to build it. But we knew we wanted to lead with purpose and have purpose at its core and impact at its core. We also knew that we didn't know what that meant, and were introduced to Renata to learn. How she built the Play Equity Fund, how she's been able to extend the legacy of the LA84 Foundation, and actually where the need is here in Los Angeles. And I think that was one of the best things that came out of that meeting. When we met with Renata, we told her the idea behind Angel City, that we wanted to build a global brand, we wanted to build a platform, and we wanted to lead with impact. And Renata quickly asked, well, what does that mean to you? And I said, well, what do you mean? And then you told the story of the waterfall.
Right. So, and it was in the context of whether or not you want to have impact today or impact over the long term. And you know, our work is really grounded in pulling kids out of the river. So if you imagine yourself on the side of a riverbed, there are kids that are on rafts and they're floating toward this waterfall that has jagged rocks, and you know what the outcome is. And your instinct, if you're, you know, any part of a human, is to pull that child out of the river. And so we had been doing that at a foundation for 30 years. And then we called a number of friends and we're, you know, pulling a lot of kids out of the river, but we were losing them to the waterfall. And I said that the impact of the most financially successful games in Olympic history, of which legacy we hold, is insufficient if we're not solving that gap. And so I said, somebody has to go upriver and ask the question, why are kids in the river in the first place? And that was really the founding principle of the Play Equity Fund, is to really address systemic issues and barriers, policy, legislation, narrative, to really attack both the systemic issues while we're also using our direct service grants to continue pulling kids out of the river. And I asked a simple question is, do you want to have direct service or do you want to have long-term impact? And in Julie Uhrman fashion, she said both.
And Julie, you didn't come from that background. In other words, you were working with venture capitalists, starting up tech and entertainment firms, Ouya, am I pronouncing it right? Ouya, which was one of the game module
It's like
firms.
booyah.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Very good.
And all of a sudden you're coming and you want to do something, and you've shared with several of us earlier, you knew nothing about soccer. Yep. That wasn't something, football, sports wasn't really where you were at. How did all that happen, and how did it end up that you're with Natalie Portman and a variety of interesting people just disrupting how you build a sports team, and how that connected around impact and mission?
Well, I mean, you actually said it earlier when you talked about building a network, right? Building a community. And so in I looked it up, it was 2015, I think. I have a friend whose name is Robin Ward. She worked at UTA in their ventures group. And she realized that all the women in venture and tech in LA actually grew up playing basketball. All of her friends grew up playing basketball. And she's like, you know what, there's the boys club, they all go and play golf on Fridays, but there's no women's club. There's no women's authentic networking event like there is for men. So she decided to create a basketball league where all the women in tech would get together, and that would become our opportunity to network. So every summer, Robin would put on these basketball games, and venture capitalists and tech and people in entertainment would come and play. I think I missed every single one until August 19th of 2019. There was a match in it. And I go there, and I talk like I'm in football all the time. There's a game. And Karen Nortman's there. And Karen Nortman is a venture capitalist at the time at Upfront Ventures. Before that, she held the role of business development at IAC. They created Match.com, Urban Spoon, a bunch of like early internet companies. And she had just come back from the World Cup. And she spent a lot of time with the players, and she spent a lot of time with the executive director of the U.S. Women's National Team, Players Association, and spent a lot of time with Natalie in this organization called Time's Up. Yeah, called Time's Up, where it was really an organization built around the U.S. Women's National Team as they were embarking on their lawsuit against U.S. Soccer for pay equity. And so they were spending a lot of time with the team. They go, Kara goes to Paris for the World Cup. The U.S. Women's National Team wins the World Cup second time in a row, back-to-back, which has never happened before. And on the plane ride home, Natalie starts blowing up Kara's phone and saying, hey, why don't we bring a women's professional soccer team to LA? Kara thinks she's joking, she's kidding, she's a celebrity, what does she know about business and sport? But after the third or fourth text, Kara realized that Natalie wasn't kidding. Kara started making some phone calls, learning about the National Women's Soccer League, and realizing that the league was actually on very shaky ground. It was entering its 8th year in the league, but there was real concern with whether or not it was going to last another year. There was no commissioner, and there were probably a couple teams you could buy for around $2 million. That followed with this basketball game where I was, and Kara and I had both grown up in LA. We knew each other for a long time, but had never worked together. I pitched her a lot of businesses to invest in. She would say no all the time. But throughout that, we developed a mutual respect for each other. And after the game was over, she pulled me aside and she said, Natalie and I are thinking about building a women's professional soccer team here in LA. Do you want to help? Like, you're an entrepreneur, you know how to build businesses, we have very busy day jobs. I'll tell you everything I've learned and run with it and see if there's a there. At which point my first response was, Natalie Portman, the actress? And she said yes, and she sort of explained.
She didn't say Queen Amidala, but
I did not say Queen Amidala. And then after that, my second question was, what's the National Women's Soccer League? I didn't even know there was professional soccer in the US. So obviously I had a lot to learn, but that's how it's really started. And of course, as an entrepreneur, as someone that was born and raised in LA, as someone who grew up playing sports, the idea of being part of a sports team, launching a sports team, launching a women's team, using it as a platform to drive for equity, using the best assets in the world, which are literally the best players in the world, that was all, you know, really compelling and exciting. But to your point, I grew up playing basketball. So I never played soccer because my mom wouldn't sit on the field for 90 minutes. So if my mom wouldn't watch me, I didn't play the sport. So I didn't play softball either. And then I really watched games because it wasn't, in fact, if my sister's husband had the game on, we watching Real Madrid, we'd make him turn it off. Like literally went out of our way to turn off soccer in the household. That basketball game was on a Monday night. That Sunday was an El Tráfico game. It was LAFC against LA Galaxy at LAFC. So imagine, that was my first football match ever. Natalie, myself, Kara, we all went. It was a sold-out crowd. It was a 3-3 game. And in the middle of the amazing supporter section, which first of all, blew my mind. Like if you've been to a football match, they chant and they scream and they cheer the whole time. I'm a USC football fan. I've been to national championship games. Like I've been to SEC games. Like I thought I knew what sports fandom was. Football is just different. So I was blown away by that. And in the middle of the supporter section, there was a gigantic flag that read, "Bring the NWSL to LA." And it felt like it was like kismet. It was meant to be. And looking out at that crowd, I was just like, I want to do this for women's football. And that was it.
And how did you get all of the group of people together? I mean, because the connection was,
Yeah.
or actually, let me ask that question in a slightly different way. You wanted to do it, you're meeting with Renata, you're talking about mission and impact and purpose.
Yeah.
Those are terms that we use all of the time in this business school and across the university, very mission driven. Both of you are in incredibly mission driven organizations. Where do you make that connection? Because you want to make a profit, but you also know you're going to do it in a very different way. You told Renata you wanted to do it now and for the long term.
So COVID actually was our friend because it forced us to slow down.
But where is it for you, though? I think she's asking more a question of what drives you personally.
What drove you to do the mission thing?
Yeah.
Because it's distinctive.
I mean, it's, well, first of all, Natalie said we had to.
So that was the way you got the money.
To be very clear, like, after that game and after we decided that we were going to do this as an entrepreneur and knowing nothing about the sport, I went out and researched it and looked at who the best of the best was. And after researching and reading a ton of books and talking to a ton of people in sports, my thesis was, we are going to build a team that's profitable. 90% of all sports teams aren't profitable. So if I can build a women's team that's profitable, I can change the narrative for everyone. Not just that women's sports is investable, but like you can actually build a functioning business. And oh my God, it's a women's sports team, it changes everything. To do that, I wanted to build Angel City as a platform, which meant more than just football, right? How can we build other products and services under the umbrella of Angel City? Because we need other revenue streams because I don't own my stadium. Right, so I'm limited. And then the second part was I wanted to be a global brand. I wanted Angel City to be as well known as the Lakers and the Dodgers and the Dallas Cowboys, right? Anywhere in the world you go, people know who the Los Angeles Lakers are. They know the New York Yankees logo. You can be in Africa and someone's wearing a New York Yankees hat and never seen a game and don't know a single player on the team, but they know it's New York Yankees, and I wanted to do that for women's sports. So those were my two goals initially for Angel City. We go have the first meeting with Natalie, and she says, I want to lead with purpose. I want to give back to the community. And so Angel City became this three-legged stool of platform, brand, and purpose from the beginning. We met Renata, who was going to teach us what purpose was. And the first thing that we did was we had that roadshow.
Yeah, but I'm gonna call bullshit on this for a minute.
What part?
Is that it's your heart.
Well,
It drives you to, you care for people. You care for the city, you care for players, you care for relationships. And so I think, Dale, I'm hearing you ask the question of what drives you as a purpose-driven leadership, right? So let me model.
Okay.
And then we'll come back to you.
See, I don't need to do anything. We're just going to let the
me
two of them
model.
riff.
It's a road
yeah,
show.
get comfortable. We're going to be here a while.
Is that, for me, it's this university, is that we are taught to be men and women of service. I like to say the Jesuits raised me. A friend of mine I get this daily reading, and she sent me this daily reading because I refer to myself as a servant leader, right? We are to be in service of others. And the quote says something like this, that in the Bible, service is the way in which love becomes real. And that God's measure of devotion is how we treat other people when there's nothing in it for us. And so I think when you talk about being of purpose, being of service, and I think what's brilliant about what Julie has done, and I've said this too when I was in the private sector, is you can do well and do good at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive, right? And so saying that they want to have a purpose-driven organization is doing well and doing good at the same time, and she has proved on an international scale that when you rethink the sponsorship model, when you rethink how you build a team, when you start with community at the center and actually create a sense of, and this is what's amazing about sports in all of its glory, is that it has this ability to bring communities together. It creates a safe space for people to try new things without judgment. All the resiliency and the grit and, finding your true purpose and finding your best self, if I was to add more Jesuitness to it. And I think that is ultimately, to my mind, what is the successful formula for Angel City Football Club. When you go to the stadium for a game, and I was there for the first sellout game, it's family, it's community. And people, particularly in this day and age, want that sense of they see me and I belong here.
Yeah.
So now I've modeled.
But,
So
well, it's interesting.
come on, open up.
No, I will. But it's interesting because I've always focused on for-profit. But when we decided that mission was going to be at our core, we made the decision really early that we would never sacrifice profit for impact. We would do both at the exact same time. One, because we wanted to live our values. But two, when we had an ownership group like we did, Natalie Portman, Billie Jean King, I didn't want to do anything that would hurt their brand or their reputation. So if I said I was going to do something, I had to do it. And it does change you when you know that you can have impact when you drive revenue, because they don't have to be mutually exclusive at all. And so it was really amazing. Every decision that we made, we'd ask the question, how is this going to drive the business forward, and how does this get back? It was the first question we asked any time we did something. And in fact, if we ever overemphasized anything, it was the impact. And we spent so much time, early on the impact. We haven't, we only made one playoff in 4 years. We're fixing that. But when you start seeing the impact and you seeing the lives that you change, you just want to continue doing that. The other thing that we have, you mentioned it out front, but when we started, and I think it's because we didn't come from the world of football or the world of sport, we had a high degree of curiosity. We always asked why. Like, why do you do it that way? Why was it done this way? Why is it not done this way? Why can't we do this? Why can't I hire this person? And so we felt like not coming from sport was actually going to make a better product, to the extent that I actually went out of my way not to hire people from sport, because I didn't want their experiences to limit what was possible. There were some jobs that we absolutely needed sponsorship. I didn't know anything about that, but with sponsorship, I didn't want to hire anyone from the NFL or the NBA or the Lakers. I didn't want to hire anyone where it was easy. I wanted to hire someone who did sports where it was hard.
Or formulaic.
Right, where they had to be creative and different. Community, right? We needed someone that understood football, that understood the culture. But marketing, nope. Product, nope. In fact, one of the funny stories, when we announced in 2020, we wanted to start building our community, right? We needed to create a social handle, and we needed to start creating content and telling stories and getting people excited about a team that wasn't coming for 2 years. We interviewed 4 of the top social agencies, marketing agencies here in LA, from big to small, literally the best. And half of them came back and said, what are we going to market? What are we going to sell? And I was like, what do you mean? Truly. And they're like, well, you don't have a name. You don't have a player. You don't have a team. You don't have a place that you're playing. What are we going to talk about? And I was like, what do you mean, what are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about our impact, and you're going to talk about our community, and you're going to talk about who we want to impact, and you're going to talk about what our values are. There are tons of stories here. They're just not the traditional ones that you're used to. And so we had to get a lot of people to think differently. And having that level of curiosity from the beginning was really important. The story that I was going to tell that had 2 profound effects on Angel City and myself was when we decided we wanted to lead with purpose and we wanted to have a positive impact in the community, we didn't know what that meant. So Renata set up this virtual town hall, and you had 60 different LA organizations on it. It was this amazing Zoom call. And you talk about your biases, and you start to listen to these organizations and what they need. And your bias is that everybody needs money, right? And what was so beautiful about that is that you learned that it wasn't necessarily money. Maybe it was coaches. Maybe it was security guards because the pitch, there's no lights at night, so the kids didn't feel safe. Maybe it was transportation. We learned that some of these kids didn't have 3 school meals a day because of COVID. They weren't getting 2 meals that they were normally getting at school. And that really helped define our social impact platform of Equity, Essentials, and Education, where it wasn't just, hey, getting you free access to sport, but it was, if I don't have 3 square meals a day, if I don't have transportation, if I don't have a sports bra, if I don't have cleats, it doesn't matter if there's a pitch across the street, I can't play. And it was that level of curiosity that really helped us hone in on how we could have impact.
Well, I think curiosity and I think listening. So you guys really listened. The community was centered, and you can see the impact that they've made, both with their fan base, but also the impact that they've had in the community since then.
Now, you both are disruptors. I mean, you did what you do very, very differently. And if you think about what was the biggest disruption that you did that had the typical community that you would be expecting to support you, all of a sudden saying, they're crazy. I mean, what do they think they're trying to do? They have no expertise in this space. But you said that didn't matter.
Look, somebody asked earlier, at our pre-dinner, what's your journey? How did you get to where you were? And, as I reflected on that, I think that was a question that you asked as well, is I didn't wait for permission, right? It's if you sit and you're saying, well, I have to wait for permission to do something. I think it's the curiosity. For me, from a personal perspective, I grew up in an environment where, all the negative things I was proximate to, right? And could have gone down that, wrong path because I would have followed my brother anywhere, and it wasn't a good place to follow him too. And there was this curiosity to say, well, how could I be better? How could I get a path to college? How could I, do these things? And so it was that curiosity and not waiting for permission to say, okay, Renata, you can do this, or you could do that, or you could do. And so that's just been a philosophy that I've, held throughout my journey. I mean, hell, to be curious enough at 17 to say I'm going to sign up and go to the Army because I needed Uncle Sam to help me pay for college. And then, oh, by the way, I don't want to be stateside. I want to be stationed in Europe so that I can actually travel because I don't think I'm ever going to be able to afford to be in Europe and travel. And at 18, I'd seen 7 different countries, with the little, United States military card that you could travel anywhere. I mean, those were formative experiences that I think grounded me early in my leadership journey. And so I'd say to, the young folks in the room is don't ask for permission. Go get what you want to get. And I think being true to your convictions. When I took over the foundation in 2016, it was a transition when we were bidding for our 3rd Olympic Games. And all respect to the staff and the board and the organizers, it had gotten stale. People had forgotten that we were the most financially successful Olympic Games in history. That, Peter Ueberroth and Tom Bradley and the sponsorship model and the fact that the Olympics and the IOC is what it is because of '84, because we kept doing the same thing that we did yesterday. And so, if I had waited and said, oh, do we have permission? No, because my board was of a certain age and was holding on to the legacy of yesterday and didn't know how to build a legacy going forward. And so when I sort of conceptualized this idea of a charitable arm to really focus on systemic change, and people in the name Play Equity came from a conversation with one of my good friends who was the chair of a $1 billion foundation, because I'm like, why aren't these foundations giving us money to help kids? Equity foundations, health foundations. Sports is not just about professional sports. She said to me, Miha, do we do any work together? And I said, before I could answer, she said, oh, probably not because I won't name the foundation, are in the equity space. And I got upset and I said, we're in the equity space, Play Equity. And I started to rattle off the data of where it's not fair that kids don't have transportation, that they don't have a coach, that they don't have lights. And her look was like, wow, well, maybe we should do some work together. And it was at that moment I put the words Play Equity together. They had never been put together before. I went home, I Googled it, couldn't find it. We ran a trademark search. And for you business-minded folks in the room, I trademarked it. So Play Equity is owned by the LA84 Foundation. But then when I conceptualized the framework of this new nonprofit, people didn't believe, my own board didn't believe. What are you going to do? You're going to major sporting events and you're going to curate legacies, you're going to be an intermediary, you're going to do system change. And fast forward 8 years, because I stayed true to what I believed was going to be a gap in the marketplace. Last year we sponsored our first piece of legislation, AB 749, to study the creation of a youth sports commission or department in the state of California. We're one of the few industrialized countries. we're one of the few industrialized countries that don't have a youth sports commission or department. You know more about your doctor, your optometrist, your ophthalmologist than you do about your son's or daughter's coach, right? The resources that aren't equitably distributed to community-based organizations. We raised $10 million last year. I was talking earlier to a young man who's a hockey player. My strategy is to do what Wayne Gretzky said, skate to where the puck is, and that you got to know that puck's going to be there and have good instincts and believe in your heart that if you listen to community, if you put the right team together, that that thing that you're doing is right. So you got to have the courage of your own convictions to stay true to your purpose. And if I had given up, I wasn't 100 times that people told me no. But if I had given up and said, we'll do something else, we won't call it play equity, I don't know that we would have the impact for the kids in the community that we serve today.
So, it's funny, LA84 is known as a real legacy organization. You're building a legacy with LA Angel City and doing it differently. And I'm curious how do you translate that concept of I want to build a legacy into the neighborhoods and into the communities where you need that partnership. That's how you grow fandom. That's how you meet the needs of the community. How do you translate that legacy to strategy?
That's an interesting question. I'd maybe frame it to say, I didn't think when I took over that I was inheriting legacy, that I saw my responsibility to Rayford Johnson, to Tom Bradley, to Peter Uberoff, the organizers and this incredible thing that they did, that my responsibility was to grow that legacy, right? And so the strategy was how do I bridge from the past to the future? And so if you think about, and I do often, Olympism, and Pierre Coubertin, who's the founder of the modern Olympic Games in 1896, is that Olympics wasn't about the spectacle of sports. It was very Jesuit-like. It was about making the individual better. How does the individual, through sport, take themselves to test? It wasn't about winning medals. And then how can you use the global games to bridge divides and bring communities together? And that was the core value for the '84 Olympic Games. And just as a side subscript is Peter Uberoff was born on the day that Pierre Coubertin died. Same month, same day, same year. And so there's like this kismet in terms of the values that are aligned. And so how do you respect the history and the shoulders of legacy that I stand on, but still modernize Olympism in a way that's going to have impact 40 years into the future? And play equity, when you think about those values, is Olympism modernized for the next generation.
Now, Julie, you're stepping down to an advisor role. I have two questions that are around this legacy piece. One is, what do you think about in the legacy that you've started by doing it differently with Angel City? And when did you know that, okay, it's time to step down?
So, we talk about now how, and maybe it's a Marcus spiel, but we want to have a legacy off the pitch and a dynasty on the pitch, right? You don't talk about dynasties until you are one, and you really don't talk about legacies. Other people talk about your legacy. And that's how we always thought about it when we were building Angel City. We thought about our mission, right? Our mission from day one was to use sport and entertainment to drive to equity. So what are we doing every single day to drive to pay equity, gender equity, visibility equity as far as media consumption is concerned? And we made sure that everything we did had some positive impact on that. So we want to drive to pay equity. We know that's going to take years and we can't do that alone, but we also know that we want to be part of the solution and not the problem. So yes, we have a salary cap, but in our league, players can make an additional $15,000, which is called excess compensation, by doing additional work for the team, which sounds counterintuitive because the work really should be playing football, right? And the way that the league had thought about that was, meet and greets and autograph signings, which is incredibly laborious and again, takes time away from them doing their skill. What we said was, you know what, their followership is so large, their name and likeness is so valuable, if I can get them to say, hey, come see me play at BMO Saturday at 2 p.m., I'm gonna get way more value out of that than if they sign autographs for 50 people. And so we created the we created the 1% player fund, which was 1% of all net revenue from our gate receipts goes to our players. They're helping to drive ticket sales, they should benefit from that. We wanted to not only impact our current players, but to the point that Renata made, like, how do we support those whose shoulders we stand on? How do we support the players that built this incredible league, who have built all this interest, but have never had a seat at the table, strategically or financially? So we changed the paradigm on that. First, we allowed them and brought them into the ownership group, so they finally had an opportunity to benefit financially. But then we wanted to not only impact those that supported Angel City, but all former players. So we started the Player 22 Fund, which is a grant system to former players that they could apply for, whether it was education or entrepreneurial efforts, where they could get grants up to $10,000 to help them pursue, again, schooling or their project. And we've done something like over $200,000 in grants since we started, and that's not just former Angel City players, that's any former player. And then through our impact work, how do we impact our youth? And one of the biggest programs that we're proud of that we actually announced yesterday, or 2 days ago, was this program that we do with LA Recs and Parks, where LA Recs and Parks supports recreational, right? It's an opportunity for after school to kick a ball and to play, right? But the next step from recreational is instructional, right? How do I teach you to get better? And then the step after that is competitive play. Well, LA Recs and Parks really just stops at recreational. When you get to competitive play, you're in this pay-to-play model where it's club teams and it costs $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 a year to play. So now you're starting to price out these kids that are exceptional but don't have that kind of discretionary income. So what Angel City has done is worked with LA Recs and Parks to create that step function beyond recreation to instructional and competitive. We started an Angel City coaching program. We have 400 coaches within that. They're representative of the communities that they service. And we're on our way to build that competitive play. But we've committed an additional $3 million over the next 3 years to impact 45,000 young girls and gender-expansive youth. So that's the amazing legacy that we want to leave behind from a program standpoint.
Can I embarrass you for a minute?
Sure.
I hold Julie in the same regard as I hold Peter Uberoff, is that she has left an indelible mark, not on women's sports alone, but in the sports industry, and has really demonstrated the possibility, when you lead with purpose, the great things that can happen on and off the pitch. So you're writing your legacy. So.
What does it feel like to hear that? I mean, because, and you know, Renata's sharing that and embarrassing you a little bit, but you've received numerous awards for all of that. You've been heralded as an incredible proponent of gender equity and equal pay, and, you know, issues that have oftentimes disadvantaged women and in the sport.
And Dale, and I think it's also, you know, the elephant in the room is that we as women leaders don't always get acknowledged and our flowers for the things that we've done. And I think that that's the important point here, is that, you know, Julie Uhrman, I'll put myself, we're good leaders. We happen to be women, right? We're good leaders, we happen to be women. And, you know, I think, you know, and I think it's also, you know, Julie has opened the door for other women to see what's possible. These are 3 women that didn't know a thing about soccer. And they set the bar for the highest valuation of a women's soccer club in the world. In the world, not just in the United States. And Angel City is known across the globe. You know, she did that.
The work she did. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. It's powerful to have a purpose bigger than just making money. And it was core to our DNA. A lot of people ask, how do you do it? And it's hard if you don't start from the beginning, because we didn't have to convince people later. And being a startup in a small organization, the only person you were convincing was me, and we were already bought in. You know, I looked back on those first couple of years, all of the innovation and creativity. And you ask why I'm evolving, is because I want to continue to be innovative. I want to continue to be creative. I want to continue to build. And Angel City is at a point where it's going to continue to grow. But, I mean, maybe not in the breakneck speed that we did, and maybe not in the way that kind of breaks a lot of eggs. I remember when we announced, when we announced that 1% program, I intentionally announced it on the stage at an ESPNW summit. You know, the first phone call I got was from the commissioner being like, you can't do this. You can't do this.
Threatening them.
And I said, well, why can't I do this? And she goes, because that's not the intent of that's not the intent of the program. And I said, well, that's not what it says. right? It says that the players are doing something other than playing football to support the club, where their time is valued and you compensate them. She's like, well, that's not what we meant. We meant that they have to go do X, Y, and Z. And I was like, well, that's great, but that's not what it says. And
Don't ask for permission.
and it was really like, well, we don't want you to talk about it. And I'm like, and what it really was is it made every other owner uncomfortable, right? Well, why aren't you doing that?
Turns a
And the
mirror.
reality is, why aren't you doing that? Like 1% of net gate receipts for Angel City, where we sell out a 22,000 seat stadium, is pretty significant for these players. 1% of the average attendance at the time, which was, I don't know, 6,500 at a $10 price point, not really that significant, like at all, right? So why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you make it 5%? Why wouldn't you make it 10%? We kept talking about how we're playing on the upside, right? If you want to drive ticket sales and you want to drive fan engagement and you want to drive to equity, you have to make, what Natalie did that was so great was where the idea really came from. Natalie was part of Time's Up. And in 2019, there was a friendly match at the time it was Bank of California, BMO Stadium. She's part of Time's Up. She goes on the pitch and she's wearing a t-shirt that says Time's Up, Pay Up. And it's her and Jen Gardner and Eva Longoria and Uzo Aduba and Jessica Chesney. And that photo went viral, viral. Everybody started talking about Time's Up, Pay Up. Everyone's talking about the U.S. Women's National Team and their lawsuit. And now there's like, if just a picture could have that kind of impact, imagine what would happen if we actually had a seat at the table. Hence, like the beginning of the idea of having a team. And so for me, it's like everybody wants these women paid the same, but at the end of the day, it is a business. So if you want them paid the same, you have to participate in helping get us to the solution, which means if I can generate more revenue, I can pay the players more money. It is literally that simple. So if you buy a ticket, I can pay the players more money. So now everybody's part of the solution that they want, which is equity. And it just takes someone being creative and innovative and saying, why not?
Courageous.
And doing it and be willing to, take the hits that come with it. And, we took a lot of them.
So what's the difference then of like building a product and you're driving revenue for sales and building a club?
Can I?
He didn't really think
I have a.
I knew I wasn't going to get to ask questions.
No, I'm going to get to your question, but I have a thorn in my side.
Okay.
And it's
Let's play with that.
It's I'm a brand person, and Nike I love. Just do it. It's like people make things so much harder than it has to be. And I think when you talk about sports, right, and building a sports team, and even if I think about major sporting events, in a few short weeks we're going to be hosting the world here with the FIFA World Cup. They're going to make billions of dollars. The spectacle of sports has gotten so big that it makes it that you have to work extra hard to see the value of why we play in the first place. And that's what Julie sees it instinctively, to just sit and have a conversation, sit with community. And I think the challenge, I would say, maybe not the problem, but the challenge is that so many business owners are about the dollar. They're about it being a business and that it's extractive, right? They see their fans as consumers. They don't see their fans as part of their community. And how can, and I'm not saying, and our sports teams do well in community, so don't get me wrong, but I'm way in the weeds in terms of legacy and the dollars and the transactions. And, I think that the challenge was that Julie held a mirror to say, if we can do it, to her point, why can't you do it too? And then showing it that it's a double bottom line, is that it's not charity, it's an investment in your fan base, particularly in this day and age where culture comes from community, and culture is what's driving fandom in these days. I mean, Bad Bunny is going to be at the Super Bowl on Sunday. A lot of people are going to see Bad Bunny, not to see a football game. Just think about that for a moment.
No, that's an interesting point, and it strikes me about something we were talking about earlier about you're still serious about the side. There are people who go to watch the football, but you talked about the fan experience happens before the game, it happens after the game, and all of that's still driving revenue. I'm wondering if you could share a little bit sort of the conception of how do you do it all?
Well, I mean, it's sport is entertainment and entertainment is sport, right? And you want to have a good time, but you want to create the most incredible experience that has something for everyone. So I'm coming for the spectacle, I'm coming to hang out with my friends, I'm coming for the football, I'm coming to have my kids inspired, I'm coming to idolize Kristen Press because she's the best player in the world and I followed her career and I absolutely love her. I think the problem that a lot of sports teams fall into, and especially women's sports team, is they don't look at all of those different constituents, like every element of their community, and say, I'm gonna offer something to them. They say, wait a minute, I'm gonna offer a family experience. I'm gonna offer a cheap experience, right? I'm gonna offer a family fun experience. They limit themselves, and being in LA, we want it to be representative of our community and for our community. Well, we have the most diverse community of any city, therefore our product had to be diverse. And that was important to us. Most startups pick a very narrow audience. We very intentionally said, we want an experience for everyone. We want a price point for everyone. Every game is somebody's first game. So how do we elevate our experience every single time? And lastly, we never discount. Because the second we start to discount, we devalue the product, we devalue our players, and more importantly, we make it harder to achieve our goal, which is ultimately pay equity, right? If I make every ticket $10 and it's raining or there's traffic, like, it's not valuable enough, you're not gonna go. But if you pay $60, you're gonna go, right? And the reality is the players are worth way more than that. And men's teams don't even think about that, but for some reason we do. And for us, it was, we know we have exceptional players, we're gonna put on an incredible experience, and then we're gonna find something that you love for you to come back. When the World Cup was in Australia and New Zealand in 2023, we went down there. I was in New Zealand for one of the opening games to see Ali Riley, our captain at the time, who was on the New Zealand team. And I'm walking to the stadium, and I am bumping into Angel City fan after Angel City fan, and it was like unbelievable. And they'd introduced me to who they were with, and 9 times out of 10, it was not their partners, it was not their kids, it was not their families, it was the people they sat next to at the stadium. They made such friends with the people they sat next to that they created their own community, and they said, let's go do this together. And that's a legacy that, you know, I'm so proud of, is that we are able to build a safe, fun environment where people are creating their own communities, and it's becoming a part of their lives.
And Dale, to your point about building a sports team or more of a league, I don't know why this triggered in my head, but the sponsorship, the models, revenue models that Julie was talking about, not dissimilar to the revenue models that Peter Ueberroth created in the Olympic Games, right? First privately financed games, and so he's like, okay, we got to go out and get private sponsors. So he created categories. Instead of having, 3 or 4 beverages, it was just Coke, it was just McDonald's, and so he created, it didn't exist before. And so we were able to have less sponsors and more revenue. But the other thing that he did was the TV contract. He did a bid to have an exclusive TV contract for ABC, and that's really what put us over the top in terms of being able to generate a surplus. And I think that's the missing link for women's games, is WNBA, they don't get a proportional share of the 42% that the NBA owns of the WNBA of the TV contract. It's a pittance. And so when you're talking about right now, we're in the CBA for the WNBA, and players are saying, you got to pay me what I'm worth. Well, there isn't enough revenue to go around because they're holding it. When I go to Angel City football games, and we talk about this all the time, there's 1 or 2 cameras, but not at every game. You can't find women's sports on television, yet it is a good product when you go to see the game. Even my boys that I take to WNBA games, they're like, wow, that was fun. That was enjoyable. These girls can ball. And so I think that is the missing link in terms of building a successful league, like the NSSL or the WNBA, is put it on TV.
Yeah, makes a big difference. Let's talk a little bit about leadership. This is the C-Suite series. I'm curious, when you think about your leadership and in the organizations that you run, what are the biggest challenges that you see? What's the toughest part of your day-to-day?
Time. We always want to do everything all at once.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big one. I think it's interesting. I mean, again, we're in our 5th year at Angel City. We're 6.5 years. At the beginning, because we didn't necessarily come from sport, everything was why not? Let's do it. Tons of curiosity. We're going to try it if it works. I mean, again, and now that we've been going for a while, I think it's harder for the team to be creative and innovative. I think there's more fear, because at the beginning, everything was a first.
And you didn't have anything to lose.
Right.
Because everyone expected you to fail.
We were successful. I mean, everything was a first. It was the first game, the first sellout, the first signing, the first win, the first community event. Everything was a first. Everything was exciting. Everything was new. It's like, oh, we want to impact, future, current, and former players. Okay, let's do this. Boom, boom, boom. And so we were constantly creating and being unique and challenging our values and how do we live up to them. It's like, okay, well, how are we giving impact here? And what are you doing? And when you looked at our impact platform, we probably supported, it was probably like, I think our first year was like 15 different organizations, right? And so in year two, it was like, okay, we're going too wide and we're not going deep enough. We're not having enough impact. So we slowly have started to, work with fewer partners so we could go deeper and the money could go further. Renata talked about our unique sponsorship model. We give 10% of our sponsorship dollars back to the community. To date, we've put $4.9 million to work, which is incredible. Yeah. But I think the challenge with the leadership in the organization today is that there's a fear. There's like a fear of failure. There's a fear of maybe not living up to the past. There's a fear maybe not to living up to our potential. And so there is a hesitancy to be innovative and to be creative and to try something new versus going down the path of what's safe.
I'd say for me, I think the biggest challenge is maintaining success, right? Julie mentioned that earlier she's a builder. I think I'm a builder too, right? You have to have an entrepreneurial spirit to build something that didn't exist, right? What is that vision? How are you going to put the structure together? All of those things. And, it was mentioned, I've had a lot of jobs in my career. I have career ADD. I kept failing up. And this is my, not a kid. That's no joke. And this is my 11th year. It's the longest I've been anywhere. And, part of my role as a CEO was to take an organization that was looking in the past and looking forward. And I think my board, the average age of my board when I took over was 70 years old.
Careful here, Renata, we're getting dangerously close.
My point was, we talked more about the 1990s than we talked about what was the future. And so, my first challenge is how do you respect, the wisdom in the room, but then still, sort of guide. So, I've had quite a PhD in, my leadership journey. And then it was building, because that's what I am. So I'm building a new organization, I'm building a new board, I'm building a new team, then building a new nonprofit organization and, and building a team. And we're at a point now, 10 years into my journey, where, my husband asked me during the holidays, I was taking a break, he says, so, wow, you've been 10 years, what's next? And I said, it's really interesting. It's the first time in my journey that I see a horizon. Well, one, I committed to my board to 2028. But I see so much work to still be done. But it is a question as a CEO that has had such success and built off of a platform that was already extraordinary. What's next? And how do you continue to sustain that success and that impact? How do you continue to keep your team motivated? And all while staying true to your core values, which again is challenging because of the spectacle of these sports that we sit in the center of. How do I keep showing up in the morning and saying, this is what the journey looks like, and inspiring my team to follow me to accomplish those things that we said that we were going to do. That's the tough moment for me.
Yeah, it's funny when we talk about leadership here, we always talk about the concept of what does failure look like, and fail being first attempt in learning. You said fail up. I love those concepts of how we think about the kinds of risks that we'll take. And if you think back to your careers and maybe mistakes that you've made and how you've grown from them, if you could say it was time, money, reputation, opportunity, what's the biggest mistake that you've made as you look back at your careers, and what did you learn from it, and how did you move forward from that?
My biggest mistake was not investing in Angel City Football Club.
You knew that was coming. You knew that was coming.
No shortage of trying there.
We didn't know.
I wouldn't say my biggest because I've had tons, but one of the ones that I always come back to was not trusting myself. And what I mean by that is, as an entrepreneur, you're setting the vision, you're setting the strategy, you're setting the path forward, and you hire experts, right? There's that old adage, which is like, hire people smarter than you, right? So when you hire people smarter than you, you should then listen to them, right? Because they have the experience and they have the know-how, and you've effectively hired them because they know something you don't. And there was a moment in time in a business that I started where we had to make a decision, and my gut said one thing, and my expert, the person I hired, said something else. And I went with that recommendation with him because he was the expert and he had 10 years of knowledge and I didn't. And it ended up being pretty much the worst decision that I could make at the time, because it accelerated our cash burn to a point that was almost unsustainable and completely changed the trajectory of the business, because we basically grew so fast. We grew much faster than which one would think is a good thing, but in this situation, it depleted our cash reserves. And what was so hard as the leader at that moment in time was I couldn't get upset with this person. I couldn't be mad with this person. I couldn't fire this person because that was their best decision and they were the expert, and their experience said that's what it was. And I felt so helpless because I would much rather of that moment make the decision myself, because if I was wrong, then I could blame myself and I could figure out what to do. And so it sort of taught me that at the end of the day, you are just better off trusting your gut, because for better or worse, if you made the wrong decision, you're gonna learn anyway. But it's like you can't hold somebody accountable for their best judgment, but you can hold yourself accountable. And I've taken that to heart even with Angel City, where experts say you can't do it a certain way, and my gut says something else, and I'm like, okay, well, I guess we'll see. And I'd much rather bet on myself than on someone else. And that was a hard lesson to learn.
So taking that idea, what do you hire for? What do you look for? All these people want to come work for you.
Not,
what are you looking for?
It doesn't change. Wait a moment. It doesn't change who you hire, but it's about the confidence and trust you have in yourself.
Okay.
Like being okay to disagree, being able to say, okay, I get what you're saying, because they'll say like you hired me to make this right, and it's like, okay, but at the end of the day, the buck stops with me, and I'm going to make that decision, and having that confidence to do it.
I would say, because I don't make mistakes. I'm really struggling. But I would say that, just teasing, because everything is a learning experience. I mean, I think to Julie's point, right? But I would say for me, when I took over the foundation, I inherited a staff that I knew wasn't the staff that was going to take us to the future, and I didn't clean slate. And it caused me, a lot of consternation. And, if I was to start over and do it again, I would have started with the clean slate, because the team that I inherited didn't have the energy, what we needed to grow to the future. So I'd say that was a mistake. And it is also a learning in terms of, how I've built a team that I have today that, Ricky and Aretta are in the audience now. Raise your hand. I have a team that will, it's about purpose, that they live and they walk their core values, and I have no doubt in my mind that they would lay over railroad tracks for me. And that's a pretty special place to be in as a CEO.
Oh, absolutely. Anything else you would look for, that you would hire for?
I mean, curiosity. It's become a very big word for me. Just today, people seem to walk in thinking they know everything.
Can you say that again?
What?
Can you say that again, please? People walk
in the door thinking they know everything, and it's limiting. The advice I give everybody is don't limit yourself. The only one that can really limit you is you, so don't, right? But having real curiosity, asking questions, and then make a decision, and then go. But it's that's the part that's that's been surprising me the most. And when you have curiosity, you just make a better product.
And Dale, I would say just because you're smart doesn't mean you have to ask questions. My first job out of college, I did not ask a question or say much of anything for 6 months. I just listened.
Listened and learned.
I listened and learned. I watched the rhythm of things. I mean, there's so much learning and just watching how the boss comes into the room. Where does the boss sit? Does the boss have a notepad? When does the boss lean in? How is he treating his other employees? So just listening. I was actually in a meeting with a young woman who just started working with us. Smart, brilliant, and we're having this conversation about a presentation that we gave today, and she's support, and she was making comments about the presentation, and I haven't had a chance to go back to her to, you know, kind of give her some coaching, but it's like, it was your first day. First day. And you're, for a project we've been working on for 10 months, and she's going to offer her opinion, which is wrong, by the way. I didn't say anything in the meeting. I kind of let it go. So, I mean, it's really, I want you to take that to heart, is just because you're smart doesn't mean you have to contribute it, right? Just remember this Plato quote, speak only if it improves the silence. Because sometimes when you say something and it doesn't hit right, that has more repercussions to how your boss and your colleagues view you than anything you could have said.
That's good. I want to give the audience time for questions too, but one of the traditions in the entrepreneurial speaker series and the C-suite series is to kind of do a quick lightning round. So real quick questions. One belief that you changed your mind about. One belief that you changed your mind about.
Those are like thoughtful questions.
Yeah, that's not a lightning round
I thought you were going to say UCLA or USC.
Yeah.
Well, Renata, you and I would know
Football
what
or
the answer
soccer.
to that one is.
Like, you know,
Right, football or soccer, yes.
Okay.
It's what you said, that what's
Something you
say
changed
that
your
you
mind
can-
about.
You can do good and do
well
well
at the same time.
time.
That's nice. Okay, now I'll go to an easy one. Favorite book or podcast that has really hit you? Didn't I give you these ahead of time? I didn't, huh?
You did. Did you send them to me? Storytelling Animal, about narrative and how people think and how do you tell stories.
Good hanging with Amy Poehler and the Gwyneth Paltrow episode.
Oh, nice.
It made her seem like a normal person, and like basically everyone at our age is doing the exact same thing, so I felt good about myself.
Best advice that you ignored and then later regretted?
Invest in Angel City Football Club. Do you see that haunts me,
don't
right?
get so emotional.
Okay.
Yep.
That one's hit you. A small habit that created big results.
Excellence is a habit. Excellence is
Always
a habit.
pursuing.
Excellence is a habit.
Like that.
Not taking no for an answer.
Speaking of not taking no for an answer, how many times were you told no?
About 100.
And what kept you going?
Belief, like true belief.
Conviction.
We can make a difference and we can build it, and we were right. So it's just about finding the right person.
Turn the microphone to all of you. Questions? Who is the robot mic, Jackie? Jesse up front.
I think they should get tickets to the next game. Oh, you know what? What?
Yes.
Oh, we can hear you.
It's on. Okay, sweet. Oh, there it is. What the heck? I wanted to ask, what do you guys think were the biggest factors that turned these ideas into actual things that people are talking about and engaging in? Can you elaborate a little more on that process?
For me, it's simple. It's the best team ever. It's hiring the best team. So Angel City would be nothing without the core team that started it. We all had similar beliefs and conviction. I think you started to ask a question that, of course, we cut you off on, which was sort of what your management style is. And mine, like, very much is I give people autonomy and I give them accountability, and I'm there as a resource to solve problems, to challenge them to think bigger. And I hired, incredible people that were passionate and believed. Where, I mean, it was COVID. It was all Zoom calls. We'd say, okay, we want to develop a program. We want to get out to all the clubs. I mean, that's all I would say on a call. And the next week I'd come back and we would have the next 6 months planned of all every practice, every club we were going to, and where I had to be. And that was unbelievable, where every single person that sat in that room believed in what we were doing. So there was no way we were going to fail because we all took it so personally.
Yeah. Same is it hiring a team. I mean, as entrepreneurs, as leaders, as CEOs, vision, strategy, execution, but I couldn't do all that Areta and Ricky and Fernando. I mean, Fernando Ramirez was the bomb on the state legislation, but it's hiring the right people and then empowering the people with agency to execute on that vision.
Thank you.
Shout it out.
I'm going to let our event staff choose, so maybe start here and then turn around. There's some questions in the middle and the back.
Okay. Hi, my name is Olga Harrison. I just recently graduated from LMU back in May, but now I'm working in the media advertising space. So definitely when you're talking about media, not like media rights and how much money there is behind that and how much of that isn't going to players, I feel very like passionate about that. But another topic of like sports, politics, entertainment, foundation, like that's all like intersecting right now. So I guess my question is like, what's the pulse on that? And like, how is that affecting the day to day? And are you still able to do the work that you're doing?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We're in a tough spot right now. The world is very divided. And, I worked at the Dodgers. Dodgers took a lot of heat for, and I think it's just, there was a moment in time 10 years ago where, I don't even know how I want to answer this question, but from a corporate brand perspective or a sports team's perspective, you feel like you're the family. And that when your family is hurting, you want, your team to be able to speak out on those things that you see as injustices or, that might be disenfranchising you. And I think there was a moment in time where teams did that. And then we have a different administration that now teams are being questioned of, well, can I actually say something? And I think that in my personal opinion, that we have become too polarized and that we don't allow ourselves space to see each other. And, I'll just give an example because I won't say which sports team, but we often get called for advice of what would you say, particularly with the ICE raids last year. And I said, you can walk the fine line to say that that people are human and that we should all treat people with humanity. That shouldn't be a political issue. It shouldn't be a political issue. And that sports is a platform that we want to bring all walks of life, all of Southern California together, and that we want to see and treat people with dignity and respect. And I think it's become much more difficult with the spectacle and the politicization of the sports industry that we can't even do something as simple of saying that all people deserve dignity, respect, and should be treated as humans. Oh, she in the middle.
Sorry.
And she got a notebook. You taking notes?
I am.
She gets an A. Whose class is she in?
Well, first of all, I grew up playing soccer. How much Angel City FC is changed its entire end of themselves and like created opportunities for young girls is amazing. And I have a question. I think coming from probably a lot of us here is how can we get involved in the 2028 Olympics?
I don't know. Just go on their website, LA28.org. There's a volunteer portal that you can sign up on, and they've been doing a lot of volunteer activities. So I think they did a Heal the Bay. They do some of the Shine LA programs that the mayor has launched last year. So monthly, they're going out to various parts of the city to clean up and beautify LA to get ready for the world. And so I would log on to their volunteer portal, and that way you'll be able to get in the mix.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christian Goody. I'm class of 2015. And Renata, my mentor, Colin Hines, told me to tell you hello.
Colin
Yeah.
was a classmate of mine. We used to have some long stories in the lair.
Right. So I graduated in LMU, communication studies, minor entrepreneurship. Well, honorary minor entrepreneurship. I just always snuck into Dr. Choi's classes. Yeah. Well, you know, it's 60,000. You know, I just come and get a little sneak peek. But to kind of go further off that question, and Renata, you had mentioned that, you know, just the LA market is so, you know, it's the LA market. You know, it's high turnover, very, you know, culture based, and just this is probably going to be one of the biggest Olympics, you know, especially 2028. So my question is, what do your organizations being CEOs, how do you guys plan on capitalizing off the people and international market and all the money that's going to be flowing in LA in 2028 as visionaries and CEOs?
Yeah, that's a great question. And the 2028 Olympics will be the best and most financially successful games in the history of the Olympic movement. I'm not running them, so I can say that. No, but I mean, that's what we hope. I mean, LA knows how to host the Olympic Games. This will be our third games. People don't realize that our first games in 1932 also turned a profit, $1 million. So we do know how to do that thing that's the Olympics. This is not without its challenges. Certainly, we talked about the geopolitical climate. You know, $7.1 billion is the number. They also need $1 billion in security costs and transportation from the federal government. And so their focus, rightfully so, is on games delivery. The volunteer program is sort of their first entry point. They've had these community listening sessions around climate and economic development, and so they'll be rolling out some things there. What we're doing as a legacy of the 1984 Olympic Games is ensuring that the impact of these major sporting events, not just the Olympics, but we have the NBA All-Star Game next week. We have the World Cup in June. We have the Super Bowl next year. And we also have the U.S. Women's of Golf in June as well. And then we have the Olympic Games. And then we hope that the Women's World Cup will come back to Los Angeles in 2031. So there's a long horizon for major sporting events. The Olympics is, you know, sort of the pinnacle for the United States. And so we're, as a legacy organization, feel a responsibility to make sure there's impact in community. And we're working with the mayor's office and the county around a framework of how do we look at cultural hub communities where you know, sports is tapping into, where creativity lives, where the narrative of Los Angeles wants to be told. Because right now there's this dystopian view of Los Angeles, right? That there's homelessness on the street, that there's, you know, the ICE raids and all of those things, and that's not the Los Angeles that I know, right? That's only a part of Los Angeles. And the Hollywood sign, the beaches, you know, the glitz and glamour, that's also only a part of Los Angeles. You know, it's not the Los Angeles that I live every day. And so we've been working on a project that we call LA Rising, and it's looking at cultural hub communities and integrating art, climate, and culture to build resilient communities. In fact, I had a presentation today with our funders, and so there'll be more coming out about that project. But that's what we're doing as a legacy of the 84 Games, to work in partnership with both 28 and the city and the county to make sure that these just don't gloss over communities and neighborhoods, but actually has a lasting and tangible impact for the lives of the people who live there.
Renata, along those lines, LA Development Corp is also doing programming to allow small businesses, entrepreneurs, local businesses, so that the sponsorships and the ability to have contracts to provide services for the games won't just be limited to the big brands, the multinationals. You're going to see a lot more of that, and LADC, along with the LA Chamber, building on-ramps with all of the support for contracting to make that happen, and particularly link that out to other communities, which I think is also a unique LA feature.
Yep, 100%. You can get it ready.
Hi, my name's Finn. First and foremost, I just want to thank you both again for taking the time to share with us your experiences and your incredibly fascinating journeys. Renata, I was hoping to expand upon a point that you briefly touched on about the lack of equality when it comes to televising women's sports. I've been working in the broadcast production for our athletics team here for almost 3 years now, and I've seen the way that through Title IX, like, we ensure that men and women get the same platform when it comes to broadcasting. I guess, what do you two believe is like, what are the necessary steps to make sure that when I turn my TV on for the professional level, it's the same thing? You know, I don't flick on the TV and find it easy to find NWSL games, and you know, at the college level, it's very easy. So,
I'll let Julie answer that.
Yeah, I mean, so back in 2019, we had an upside down broadcast deal. It cost us more to produce the games than we were getting in revenue. We were on CBS, which is in Paramount Plus, and CBS SN in 2024. We did a deal. We did a new media rights deal. It was a $240 million deal for 4 years, largest deal that's ever been done in the NWSL, which picked up carriage of our games on CBS, ESPN, ABC, Ion Sports, and that was about 40% of our inventory. The other 60% was on NWSL Plus. The positive was reach, right? We're on a lot of great channels. People subscribe to streaming services, or they can turn on the TV and see us on CBS and ESPN. The challenge is the fragmentation. So it's great that you have all these channels, but I don't know where to go or what time. And the hope was that over the 4 years of the deal, we would create a user behavior similar to the NFL. You don't quite, like, the NFL is incredibly fractured, but we all know where to go for games because we've lived it for years, right? Thursday Night Football is on Amazon, you know, Sundays on, you know, Fox and CBS. Sunday night is on ESPN and ABC. Like, they've taught behavior. The challenge with women's sports is you have to really care to learn that behavior. So we sort of have the positive and the negative. The positive is we have great reach. The negative is nobody still knows where to go and when to find them. The league has worked hard even this year coming up to make it more clear, like, you know, Saturdays at this time we'll always have 2 ESPN games and whatnot. It's interesting though, it presents another problem, which is the TV times have to match up with when teams have availability in their schedule and when they have availability in their stadiums, which means we're not always broadcasting the best games. We're broadcasting the games that are available at that time. That's a huge problem because when you do show up to watch women's sports, you want to watch the best teams, you want to watch the rivalries, you want to watch the teams that have the greatest storylines, that have the players that are part of the U.S. women's national team. And if you show up and you see 2 teams that aren't that, and you see, you know, maybe not one of the best games, you're unlikely to come back. So it's like we've solved some problems, we've created other problems. Our media rights deal is up in 2 years, and my hope is that the board starts to think about, you know, how do we limit the places that we are so that it makes it easier for discovery, and therefore drives more viewership. More viewership will then drive greater sponsorship revenue. More greater sponsorship revenue will then make its way back to the clubs. So we're getting there. I mean, we're much better than we were. We just, and then this year we picked up a new partner, Victory Plus. I don't know if people, we're all gonna have to learn what Victory Plus is. So it's like, it is, you know, it's better, but the fragmentation is challenging. And we'll get there.
My name's Ivy. I just want to say thank you guys for being here. And my question is, was there any failure at any point in your guys' career that really shaped the business leaders that you guys are today?
I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, so everything has failed, except for Angel City. I mean, look, I think, you know, you learn more from failure than you from success. A lot of success is timing and luck. When you fail, you know exactly what it was, when it happened, and how it happened. You know, with Ouya, which was an Android-based video game console that I founded, we also got a lot of no's and ended up going to Kickstarter to fundraise. What that taught me was the power of community, and I took the power of community into Angel City. Also, the video game industry is a really difficult industry as it relates to gamers. They're very vocal. I think the concept of the vocal minority started in gaming. It's very similar in sports. You have this large vocal minority, so understanding how to deal with that was something also I took into Angel City, which aren't necessarily failures, but they're learnings. But from a failure perspective, it's, you know, as an entrepreneur, it's like, how do I extend my cash run as long as possible? How do I make sure I hire the right people, and if I have the wrong people, how do I exit them quickly? Because not having someone is better than having the wrong person in the role. Those are sort of critical learnings. And then also, who do you partner with? That was one of the biggest learnings from Angel City, which is really doing your diligence on who you partner with and who you work with. Making sure not all money's the same, right? Like, yes, all money is great, but it is not all the same. To make sure that when you work with someone, they are truly values aligned, and they will be with you when it gets tough, and it's not just there for the easy times, or it's not just there for the highs, and it's not just there for the successes. So when I talk to other entrepreneurs, fundraising is really hard, and if someone says yes, you really want to take their money, but doing the diligence to make sure that they really will be with you when it's hard. It reminds me of a quick story. We had all of our money at Silicon Valley Bank. If you guys remember a couple of years ago.
Wait, well, we were at breakfast.
We were at breakfast.
Oh my God, I remember that.
So the news came out that there were challenges at Silicon Valley Bank in the evening. We got a note from one of our investors that, we talked to Silicon Valley Bank leadership, everything's going to be fine, don't worry about it, because we had time to move our money. The next morning, literally at breakfast with Renata, and we find out that the bank is imploded, and all of our money is there. And again, we built Angel City very uniquely, where we were a startup, where we fundraised, so it's not like I had one person to go to and say, give us money. I mean, technically we did with a control owner, but that wasn't really the role that he played. And it was, it was interesting because I had a board that was really freaking out. But we were in a fortunate situation where we had some money parked with partners that hadn't paid us yet. So because we had great relationships with our sponsors, it was like, can you front us, some payments that are coming up down the line? We had some money banked with LAFC because of future ticket sales, which they wouldn't normally give us in advance, but it was sitting in their bank. And because we developed these great relationships, within a matter of a couple hours, we had massive access to capital to keep us going. Because it wasn't, is Angel City going to survive? The answer was yes. The challenge was, are we going to make payroll on Friday? Right? You can't have people work for you if you can't pay them. Right? So it was like, are we going to make payroll? That was like the biggest thing that was hitting us. And while everybody was freaking out, I was, very, focused on how I was going to get the money. And I was by Friday, it was like 2 days later, we had solved our short-term problem, and luckily the government, solved the longer-term problem. But that was like who do you want to be in the foxhole with when the fit hits the sham? And I don't know, it's being recorded. And that was like an unbelievable, because I knew right then and there who are our friends and who are our allies and who weren't going to show up for us.
I would just add, I never stop learning. After every speech engagement, I'll go to Ricky and say, how was it? And I don't want it was good. I want to know what was, did I say something wrong? Did I say the right things? So I'm always, as a leader, looking to make myself better. Excellence is a habit, right? And so I think, just don't think you get to a point and you know it all. It's taking that moment to reflect and to discern, what did I do well? What did I do wrong? What was my accountability in a particular issue that might have gone wrong? And so I just encourage you guys to all continue to grow and reflect on, decisions that you make, good or bad, and come out for the better.
I want to be respectful of what's been a very, very long day for both of you. And want to thank these wonderful leaders in the evening with us.
Thank you.